Fantasy films never really get the recognition they deserve, despite some excellent titles over the years, including 3 of the greatest films of all time. I realize the Harry Potter movies are very good, but I'm talking about old-school wizards and warriors teaming up to take on some twisted evil in a style that's not a comedy, not for kids, and not directed by Hugh Boll. I grew up playing Dungeons & Dragons, and my love for all things post-apocalyptic partially stems from those sword and sorcery-based roots. After playing D&D in my friend's basement for years, I had hoped to one day hear these words.
Because I need you to kiss me.
Yeah, sure, I'll kiss you.
And I need you to be my boyfriend and have sex with me. Lots and lots and lots of sex, okay? Day and night, around the clock, 24/7. Oral sex, any kind of sex, all kinds of sex. I need that with you.
I never did hear that, but the announcement of a D&D movie was a pretty close second. I was very excited because there had never been a full-fledged live-action D&D movie before. In late 2000, the film was released, and did I like it? You bet your ass I did. Yes, that D&D movie. The one with Marlon Wayans in it. Dungeons & Dragons is a 2000 fantasy adventure film from director Courtney Solomon. A voiceover explains the backstory. The world of Izmir is split into 2 groups. The mages, magic users who rule over the land, and the commoners, those who don't have magic. The newly appointed Empress Savina wants equality for all, but the evil sorcerer Profion wants to enslave all of Izmir. In Profion's lair, he's building a magical rod. I think he likes this rod a little too much. Holding it like that, I don't want to think about where he's going to put it. He has his minions release a dragon that's being held captive so he can use his rod on it. That doesn't sound too good. The dragon, being pissed off, immediately torches the room. This doesn't make sense. The dragon's just released and he breathes fire to cook Profion's minion, even though Profion, his captor, is standing right in front of him. Profion uses the rod to control the dragon. This is Profion's assistant Damodar. What's with the blue lips? Is it because A, it was free water ice day at Rita's, B, Profion keeps his lair really cold, or C, he just blew Papa Smurf? The dragon resists Profion's enchantment, so he has to kill it. How exactly does one clean up flammable marinara sauce? Outside the castle, there's a gathering of commoners who don't seem too upset by the fact that there's a flaming river in front of them. 2 thieves, Ridley and Snails, decide to rob Disneyland Castle. Meanwhile, the Council of Mages is discussing why Savina should relinquish her rod of dragon control. The Goth Empress Savina is consulting with the mage Vilden. He tells her about another rod that can be used to control red dragons. Profion's spy informs him of the rod, and he flips the fuck out.
I must have that rod of Savrail.
He sends Damodar to retrieve the scroll that tells them where the rod is. A young mage, Marina Pretensa, is working with Vilden to decode the scroll. Marina Pretensa? Real subtle. Why not just go all in and call her My Name is Pretentious? Inside the mage school, Ridley and Snails are robbing the place.
What is that? A dragon tooth. Put it back. Come on, just put it back.
Good thing dragon teeth are made of styrofoam. Snails is the worst thief ever. Marina hears the ruckus and finds the thieves.
Yeah, it must be the only way she can get guys to come home with her.
I'd have to put a feeble mind spell on myself to want to take you home.
Oh, Dungeon Master humor. Marina hears Vilden in trouble in the other room. Vilden gives her the scroll before Damodar kills him. Marina then escapes with Ridley and Snails. What exactly does she trip over? Elwood, a dwarf, shows up from out of nowhere. He does not like his helmet being knocked off. The dwarf attacks Damodar, who must have just rolled a 1. The group then escapes into the sewer. Wait, dwarfs not allowed? In the sewer? The group looks nice and clean after escaping from the sewer.
You better tell us, because like the man said, we're your accomplices.
Hey, maybe you can discuss this louder so more people can hear you. For failing in his task, Profion puts a creature in Damodar's head that will kill him if he doesn't retrieve the scroll. Then he mounts him.
But once you two have become fully acquainted, you follow the Empress's tracker Norda. She happens to be good at her job.
At the local tavern, Ridley manages to get into the scroll and Marina follows. Snails sees Norda, the elven ranger, and tries to be smooth. Why is Damodar talking like this?
Do not let them escape, or you you will suffer a fate far worse than that which hath been inflicted upon me.
He'd probably get a lot more done if he spoke just a little faster. Damodar shows up and Elwood starts a bar fight so they can escape. Snails then somehow knows how to free Ridley and Marina from the scroll.
Let's get Ridley out of here. Bidet. Huh?
That wraith must have been defective.
Oh, he seemed pretty reliable to me.
He was just inside the scroll, but now he's holding it? Marina and Ridley explain that they found out from a wraith inside the scroll that the Rod of Sabriel caused something called the Great War, which I guess is supposed to be pretty bad.
What does this rod do?
It's supposed to possess the power to control Red Dragon.
Okay, common, undercommon, dwarven, elven. What language is he speaking? Oh, god damn it, he's speaking Tuckanese. They have to get a gem called the Eye of the Dragon from the head of the Thieves Guild and take it to the Dragon Temple where the rod is held. Alright, so we've got our quest and here's the party. Ridley Freeborn, human male, first level fighter, second level rogue. Snails, human male, third level rogue. Marina Fancy Pants, human female, third level wizard. And Elwood Gutworthy, dwarven male, third level barbarian. Elwood is definitely the best member of the group, even if he is the world's tallest dwarf. In the local market, Snails sees Purple Ostrich Guy, who's a member of the Thieves Guild.
Before you get the words outsiders not appreciated branded right where your nose used to be. Get it?
Why is he talking like this? They follow Purple Guy right into the Thieves Guild. What's my motivation here? Keep walking like a chicken.
Where do you think they took Snails?
Don't worry, he'll be fine. Just let me do the talking.
They meet Xylus, the head of the Thieves Guild, and holy crap, it's Riffraff.
Well, then you'll know that the Eye of the Dragon is the prize at the center of my guild maze, won't you? You finish the maze, you win the prize.
So Ridley goes into the guild maze, or as you call it, corn. He heads into the first area, and this reminds me of something. After getting past the pendulum trap, he goes to the next area. You know, this part seems familiar too. He manages to get past the fire trap and heads to the third area. He breaks the hourglass, which opens the room to the Dragon's Eye, and oh, for crying out loud. I'm half expecting a boulder to chase him on the way out. Ridley returns, but Xylus double-crosses him and tries to take the eye. This could be one of the dumbest things I've ever heard.
I knew the man that could get through that maze alive would be able to get into that vault.
Isn't that kind of the point? He couldn't get in there if he was dead.
Who the hell is he? Who the hell are you?
Damodar shows up and they have a bald guy frown off. Xylus' troops attack, but Damodar kidnaps Marina. Aw, come on, he puts his foot down next to the map. Ridley chases after Damodar while Snails does his best feats don't fail me now. Ridley, Snails, and Elwood are trying to come up with a plan when they're captured by Norda. What's with her breastplate? Is she wearing a +2 muffin pan? Norda contacts Savina. Oh, mirror, mirror on the wall. Please don't sue this movie for copyright infringement. Norda tells Savina that Damodar has the scroll. She tells her to track him down and get the scroll back. So the party lost their mage, but gained Norda, female elf, 7th level ranger. Most likely an NPC. Marina's imprisoned, and Damodar uses his naughty tentacles to get the information he needs. You got your hentai in my Dungeons & Dragons. Ridley and Snail sneak into the castle where they're hiding Marina. I understand them outsmarting the guards, but they outsmarted beholders? And what is it with beholders sleeping on the job?
Don't tell my supervisor I was sleeping.
Ridley goes to save Marina, and Snails goes to get the scroll, and oh god, I hope he doesn't get killed. Snails finds the scroll but falls into a rug trap. Damodar pulls him out, and he must have a problem with rights and lefts if he has to label his armor. Ridley goes looking for Marina, and oh lucky day, she's in the first prison cell he opens. And here it is. The dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Just like you thieves. Always taking things that don't belong to you.
What else do thieves do? Snails grabs the scroll, frees himself from Damodar, and runs away. Damodar chases him to the roof and beats the hell out of him. Ridley tries to stop him, but Damodar kills him. Ridley fights Damodar and nearly gets himself killed until Marina casts a spell and warps them out of there. Back at the Mage Council, Savina's time is up and they want her to turn over her rod. Is she reading these lines off a cue card?
I was praying that you would find the wisdom to see that the path I propose for Izmir is the right one. I do not wish to fight you, but I will not leave the Empire at the mercy of an unscrupulous charlatan.
She refuses, so the mages led by Profion declare civil war. Norda brings Ridley to the elven homelands and has one of the elder clerics heal him. The elf warns him about the rod.
You and your countrymen are very close to irreparably destroying the fabric of magic with this rod you seek. The rod is man-made, unnatural. It must not be disturbed.
So the rod is man-made, and that's bad, but the other man-made rod, that's okay? Marina explains the situation to Ridley, and he takes this opportunity for some sweet, sweet guilt sex. He likes to watch. The elves give Ridley a magic sword before sending him on his way. With the map in hand, they head to the Dragon Temple. Since Ridley's the one with the dragon's eye, he's the only one who can pass. He gets into the crypt and, oh, so much loot. He decides not to be greedy and leaves it. F that, man. I mean, I know he's on a hero's journey and all, but if it was me, after this whole quest was over, I'd come back here with a portable hole and clean this place out. He sees the rod and, oh shit, a lich! Actually, it's Sevril, the creator of the rod. He warns Ridley of its power, which is depicted in this mural of the Great War, and in this pamphlet. Savina is attacking the council with her army of dragons, and Profion is overacting dangerously into Nicolas Cage territory. Ridley comes out of the temple to see Damodar capture the party. He gives him the rod so he won't kill the group. Like a James Bond villain, Damodar leaves so his soldiers can kill the heroes. The heroes then get into a massive battle with the bad guys.
Lightning bolt! Lightning bolt!
Damodar warps to Profion's tower, and Ridley manages to jump in before it closes. Damodar gives Profion the rod.
Now what about my head?
Jeez, Damodar, there'll be time for oral sex later. Profion frees Damodar from his curse. Savina's now riding her dragons into battle for some reason. If she can control them telepathically, what's the point of her getting into battle, aside from putting herself right in harm's way? Profion climbs the tower and summons the red dragons. Where'd the rod go? He's not holding it, the dragons won't listen to him.
My destiny!
Damodar and Ridley get into a magic sword fight. Ridley gets the upper hand and kills Damodar. What's my motivation here? Overact your fucking balls off.
Let their blood rain from the sky!
Ridley attacks Profion. Not the best idea.
I've enjoyed our little chat, but now it's your time to die.
Marina knocks the rod from Profion's grip before he goon arms her to the ground. Elwood and Norda attack, but they both get frozen.
My little trucker.
My little trucker? Ridley destroys the rod and Savina confronts Profion. Profion summons a monster to attack Savina. Hey Ridley, while you're cowering behind Profion, you're giving up a clear attack of opportunity plus backstab. Noob. Oh dear, the blue screen's reflecting off Savina's armor. Savina calls out one of the dragons to eat Profion. After the battle, Savina makes an announcement.
People of Izmir, at long last, I do declare that you are now all equal. Let the celebration begin.
Let the celebration we can't afford to film begin. Ridley and the party are visiting Snails' grave. The dragon's eye lights up and Norda tells Ridley that Snails is waiting for them. So the good news is they're teleported to a place where Snails is still alive. The bad news is, it's in the Tomb of Horrors. Oh, they are so screwed. The movie was filmed in Prague in 67 days for about $36 million. They filmed the movie in some amazing locations. St. Nicholas's Church was used for some of the interiors. They covered the seats of the State Opera House with this false floor to create the Council of Mages. Profion's inner chamber was filmed in the Sedlak ossuary, which is also known as the Bone Chapel. This movie was the first to ever be allowed to film in there. The Magic School was filmed inside the library of the Strav Monastery. The Thieves Guild was filmed at the Lipnese Castle, and Damodar's prison base was filmed in and around the Robbie Castle. Emmy Award-winning actor Justin Whelan played Ridley. While the Emmy he won was for a CBS school break special, most folks know him from his role of Jimmy Olsen in Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. He did cheese up his acting towards the end, most specifically when he had the Rod of Savril. I still thought he was a likable lead, though. His character arc was being set up in this movie, and in the sequel that didn't happen, it was planned that he would discover that he had magical abilities. Marlon Wayans played Snails, and while yes, he was the goofy comedic relief, he didn't bother me as much as, say, this comedic relief. To give you an idea of how much I don't like Chris Tucker, I would rather sit through a remake of Multiplicity starring only Marlon Wayans than watch a movie with one Chris Tucker. Wayans played up the goofiness of his character, and he really turned it around towards the end when he stood up to Damodar. He was filming Requiem for a Dream at the same time as Dungeons & Dragons, so they shot as many scenes with him as they could, then he left for a few weeks and returned later to finish his parts. Damodar, played by Bruce Payne, was a solid villain. I liked him ever since I first saw him in Passenger 57 and Full Eclipse. He was menacing and his fights were well choreographed. I would have preferred that he not over-enunciate his lines as much.
Post brigades at every sewer, entrance and exit. I want them found now.
But he was still a better bad guy here than he was in Highlander Endgame. He also did the voiceover in the beginning. Jeremy Irons was ridiculously awesome as Profion. I know a lot of people complained about how much he overacted in the role, but for me, that was exactly how I thought he should have acted. How else should a completely psychopathic power-mad sorcerer act? His over-the-top scenery chewing made the movie that much more enjoyable, and I'm sure Irons loved being set free to go as crazy as he wanted. Zoe McClellan, Kristen Wilson, and Thora Birch were all good in their roles, but Lee Arenberg's character of Elwood stole the show. While Snails was supposed to be the comedic relief, Elwood had the best lines in the movie.
You gotta get yourself a nice 250-pound dwarf, huh? That hair on her chin you can hang on to, huh? Huh? If I ain't drinking, you sure ain't shopping. A lot of dwarves are afraid to show their true feelings. I'm not, okay?
There were some great cameos, too. Richard O'Brien, Edward Jewsbury, and the Fourth Doctor himself, Tom Baker. On top of that, one of the creators of Dungeons & Dragons, Dave Arneson, played one of the mages in the final battle. He was supposed to have more screen time, but due to budget restrictions, his other scene was cut. There were a few other cutscenes as well. There was a scene early on where they were traveling through the sewers. When Ridley and Marina were inside the scroll, Ridley explained he hated mages because a mage had erased his father's memory, which eventually led to his death. There was supposed to be more fight sequences with the dwarf, but that got cut for time. There also was supposed to be a running gag of how he went into berserker rage every time he got his helmet knocked off.
You're repulsive, head still! I'm trying to hit it!
You shouldn't have done that!
Called shot to the nuts.
What?
Combat rules state that the crotch is a vital area. If you hit an opponent in a vital area, he's stunned for 1 round. Called shot to the nuts.
There was also supposed to be a fight with a beholder, but again, this was cut due to the budget. When Ridley was in a coma after his battle with Damodar, he had a dream about a dragon being born and bringing new life into the world. It was too expensive to shoot, so they reduced it down to an explanation from the High Elf. This was also meant to lead into the sequels, where we would see that dragons could talk. They didn't have the budget for the dragons talking in this one, and the hope was that this movie would be successful enough that they'd be able to do the dragons justice in the sequels. While Dragonheart did do talking dragons back in '96, it also had a budget twice the size of D&D, plus the masterful effects team of Phil Tippett and ILM. In the original ending, Snails was really dead, but Solomon decided he wanted to have a more upbeat ending. He reshot the ending a year after the film wrapped, with the party going to another place to bring back Snails. When Ridley was fighting the giant guard, he slammed his head too hard against the wall and cracked his head open. The rug trap was actually a hole in the floor filled with 6,000 pounds of oatmeal. The design was painted on top, and when Marlon stepped on the trap, there was a platform that lowered him into it. The Thieves Guild maze was supposed to be an homage to the opening of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Two-time visual effects Oscar winner George Gibbs designed the Thieves Guild maze. He also worked on the 3 Indiana Jones movies, and that helps to explain why this homage might have been a bit too similar to the original. Some people complained that the movie had some similarities to The Phantom Menace, and this was purely a coincidence. Even though it was released after The Phantom Menace, it was filmed before it. Because of the number of special effects shots and the small crew that was working on it, it spent close to a year and a half in post. Director Courtney Solomon grew up playing D&D and dreamed of making it into a live-action film. Solomon's mother worked in the Canadian film industry, and he got a lot of experience by helping her out when he was young. When he turned 18, he contacted TSR and spent the next 18 months convincing them that he was the right person to direct a movie based on Dungeons & Dragons. After he gained the rights, he worked almost 9 years to gather up the $36 million production budget. The budget was so tight they couldn't even afford a second unit, so Solomon shot the entire thing, pickup shots and all, himself. Instead of using a familiar setting like Forgotten Realms or Greyhawk, Solomon decided to use the world of Izmir, a land he created when he played Dungeons & Dragons. By having the movie take place in a completely unique realm, he was hoping to avoid the complaints that would come from changes made to other realms. For example, if he did it in Forgotten Realms, people would flip out if Drizzt wasn't in it. TSR and later Wizards of the Coast applauded and supported his decision. Solomon was very optimistic that the film would do well and had the main cast all sign on for a trilogy. After D&D, Solomon produced the pseudo-sequel Wrath of the Dragon God. That same year, he wrote and directed An American Haunting, which went on to be a modest success. After that, he produced the very Saw-inspired Captivity. With his mother being a production coordinator for films like The Gate and TV shows like Friday the 13th, the series, this was a major influence for his love of horror, and he founded After Dark Films, who were responsible for the 8 Films to Die For series. He's currently filming his third directorial outing, a movie called Getaway, with Ethan Hawke, Bruce Payne, and the lovely Selena Gomez. Solomon displayed some good skills for a first-time director. His use of color, his tracking shots, camera angles were all solid. I'll go so far as to say he showed more skill in this outing than the current crop of seasoned directors that film their action scenes like the camera's attached to a paint mixer. I know a lot of people have trashed the movie, saying it has nothing at all to do with Dungeons & Dragons, but if you look at the film, you'll see that there are plenty of references, and even though this takes place in a world that isn't one of the main realms of D&D, there is an overwhelming amount of material in there that is absolutely Dungeons & Dragons. The references to specific spells, humans, elves, dwarves, Khloe Kardashian, gnomes, creatures like the Beholder, and specifically gold and red dragons. There really are too many things in here to mention, but you get the point. My only real problem with the movie is kind of nitpicky. If they really were going by the rules and Prophion's a 15th level wizard, there is no way a bunch of low-level characters could take him head on. If he was that high a level of spellcaster, he probably could have taken on half a Sumdall by himself. But in the grand scheme of things, it's a minor complaint. The movie's not perfect, but I love it for what it is instead of hating it for what it isn't. Perhaps if the movie had a $300 million budget and a veteran director behind it, they might have actually ended up with something different. Yeah, some of the dialogue could have been better, and that's one of the things that you can't blame on the smaller budget. However, for what it was, I thought the movie was entertaining and faithful to the source material. They also took a big gamble, killing off arguably the second largest actor in the film. It also brings me to a thing about Snails' character. What Marlon Wayans did in the movie is relatively similar to what Chris Tucker did in The Fifth Element, but for some reason people hate the character of Snails, but love Ruby Rhod. Ruby Rhod irritated the living hell out of me and practically ruined The Fifth Element. Snails had a few moments where he was kind of annoying, but nowhere near the degree of screaming idiot that Chris Tucker played. So I guess if Marlon Wayans screamed and ran around like an asshole the entire movie, then that would have been okay. That's one of the things I just don't get. The character's hated, but he wasn't annoying. This is annoying. This, I don't know, this doesn't bother me.
Oh, you was talking to us. Oh, we was confused because your third eye was looking at somebody completely different.
I can understand if you just don't like the movie, and that's fine. Not everything can please everyone. I know people that somehow don't like Jaws. However, if you're one of those people that hates the film and thinks that Solomon shouldn't be allowed to direct anything, I'll end with this. Courtney Solomon was an 18-year-old kid with a dream to make a Dungeons & Dragons movie. He took the initiative to contact TSR and gain the rights to the franchise. After that, he then worked tirelessly for years to get the production budget. Then a few more years after that to get the film shot, edited, and released into theaters. He dedicated well over a decade of his life to make his dream a reality. What have you done today?
their blood!